Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona with producer Bobby helping us out as we'll have some previews for some good stakes races at Laurel Park for you. A couple of them are winning. You're in for Preakness Saturday. But, David, we got to get through the Kentucky Derby first, and those Derby packages are now available. We know Derby Day is coming soon. Make sure to check out the Kentucky Derby packages and play with confidence. You can save up to 39% on expert picks, data, and betting strategies that I think David Aragona is a part of. You can head to shop.drf.com and get ready to win big. So, David, let's take a peek out at Laurel Park on Saturday. A huge day they've put together. It's a Preakness preview day. I think they have 5 stakes races on the card, 12 races altogether, a big late pick 5 sequence with just 12% takeout. There's a handicapping contest where you could win some NHC seats. So a really big day. And I thought this field was fascinating. I honestly think you could make a case for 6 or 7 of the 10 in here. What were your overall thoughts of the day they've got set up in this race, the Henry S. Clark?
Yeah, it's nice to have some turf racing returning to the mid-Atlantic and northeast regions of the country, and you could see that some of these horses are ready to run because this field drew a lot of horses that have stakes potential that are stepping up out of making their 4-year-old debuts. Some that have run well in stakes in the past, like Neat, who I would imagine will be vying for favoritism in this race, looking to get back to some of his better efforts from 2024. But it's a really intriguing race to handicap, because I thought you could make a case for a lot of horses.
Let's see what the pace projector thinks over at Timeform US. Remember, this is part of the all access past performance plan. You can look at these pace projectors just as we are when we preview the races here. They've got Ocean City up front. Doesn't surprise me. He's got the inside draw. He wants to go. He's also a first time gelding. But horse like Hammer will be really interesting because this is a horse who's actually stretching out from some sprint races. So you'd imagine would be forwardly placed in here, especially with that outside draw. I think those are the 2 that look quickest on paper.
Yeah, Hammer is the real wild card with regard to this pace situation. We'll see if he actually runs in here. He looks a little overmatched on paper, trying a turf route for the first time. But if he does start here, you would imagine he's going to be looking to get forward position. But you do know the game plan with Ocean City. This horse is a bit of a runoff. He likes to show a lot of early speed in his races, and we'll see if he can hold on late.
Yeah, and we can meet him right now as we take a look at the field for the Henry S. Clark. Ocean City is going to go back to turf, so he is best on turf. But you were pointing out he's kind of a one-dimensional speed horse, so he doesn't really want to sit back and rate. He's a first-time gelding, and that generally helps horses that are kind of like this, who are sort of runoffs, maybe just relax a little bit more, not be so keyed up. And honestly, David, if you're just looking at speed figures, he's not far off competing with some of his better races. I just kind of need to see him race against a group like this that's a little bit tougher than what he's been facing. I think this is just a tougher group than what you would expect for a $100,000 stakes race. So I'm not completely against him, but I want to see one from him against a tougher group.
It is a tough field off the layoff, but he's faced some pretty good horses going back
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 starts in his career, especially going back to those turf races. I know Gray's Fable isn't the stakes horse that he once was, but he was second to him at Delaware last year. And then Swift Shore was in great form when he met him 3 back. And Verstappen is a horse that's multiple graded stakes winner who he was beaten by 2 back at Fairground. So I think he does stack up here pretty well here in terms of class. I wonder if the decision to geld him kind of has to do with that running style, Gino, because he's
Yep.
so aggressive early in his races. I wonder if they hope that the gelding is going to maybe relax him a little bit and allow him to produce a better finish. And maybe they were reluctant to geld him for so long because he is the younger half brother to sprint champion Jackie's Warrior. But I don't think Ocean City was really on track to become a stallion. So it makes sense to geld him at this stage of his career. We'll see if he can produce a big effort off the layoff for trainer Brittany Russell.
Yeah, you're mentioning those races in October last year. They're really not far off of what would be competitive in a spot like this. Card Trick will probably try to sit close, right, David? Most of his best races are when he's just off the pace, maybe has a little bit of a target there. So he'd love to see Ocean City go out front and maybe sit second or third behind Ocean City and Hammer. If you toss the Tampa Bay, he's won 2 of his last 4. Seems like he's an improving 4-year-old. He's coming off a pretty nice effort with a 91 Beyer speed figure last out.
Yeah, this field probably isn't quite as tough as that Tampa Bay Stakes that he tried to back when he was beaten by the likes of Running Bee and Northern Invader. But we'll take a look at the replay of his last race that you mentioned where he earned that career best 91 Beyer. And I thought this was a pretty nice victory. He stalked the pace and then took over in the stretch. And I thought won pretty convincingly in the end. He does feel like a horse that's improving now into his 4-year-old season. And he's getting a trainer switch for this race to Ned Allard, but that's a barn that has a lot of success in the Mid-Atlantic region. He was actually with Ned Allard going going back to the end of last year when he was competing through the fall, put forth a couple of game efforts, finishing second each time. So I won't be surprised when he puts forth another good performance at what could be a decent price.
Yeah, the horse he beat last time out had just won 2 in a row too, so he hooked a sharp horse. He was able to beat that one. We move to Fulminio, who has a 7.5 month layoff to deal with, but he is grade 2 placed. He's a multiple stakes winner. He doesn't have a ton of early speed, so he has to come from way out of it. But when you look at his speed figures and you're kind of comparing them to others, David, I feel like he's a little bit better than maybe his speed figures would suggest, just kind of overall body of work. But we haven't seen him since September at Colonial. So what do you want to do with him in this spot?
Yeah, this horse doesn't look so competitive on speed figures, but boy, he has gotten more than his fair share of less than ideal trips. He has
Yep.
just been wide around the turns a number of times. You can go back and take a look at any number of his replays on the turf from last year, and he just seems really prone to getting these wide trips. That was definitely the case last time in the Virginia Derby, where I know the result was undesirable, but he was legitimately 4 wide around both turns in that race. That's just not a successful trip on the turf. He obviously went to the sidelines for a pretty long time after that, getting a bit of a late start to his 4-year-old campaign, but his trainer, Arnaud Delacour, has pretty good numbers coming off layoffs like this. So I think he's pretty interesting, drawing more of an inside post here.
Next up is Neat. He's a multiple graded stakes winner. Feels like the class of the field here. He's proven at Laurel Park. He's proven at the Trip. He's won half of his 12 starts. And most recently, he tried grade 1 company. Wasn't the strongest grade 1 in the world, but it was his first start against Older also. And he did have to ship out west where he's not quite used to the surroundings out there. He just feels like a horse second start off the bench, David, who's going to be a really nice fit in this race. He's probably not going to be a great bet. He'll probably be one of the shorter prices. But if he were to run back with one of his better efforts, that's probably good enough to win this race. Just maybe some more exciting horses in what feels like a kind of competitive, wide open race.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly has the class to beat a field like this as a grade 2 and grade 3 winner from the middle of last season in New York. I did feel that he got very good trips in both of those victories, and he's the kind of horse that seems able to make good trips for himself. He did have some minor trouble in the stretch of the Bryan Station, too, back at Keeneland, where he kind of ran into the back of a horse that was fading and had trouble splitting rivals in the stretch. But last time out in the Kilroe Mile, Gino, I know that was a tougher field than this. However, I don't think it was the toughest edition of the Kilroe that we've ever seen, and he did attract support in that race, going off at 6-1. And I just thought it was a really dull effort. He lacked any finish whatsoever. So that makes me just a little bit concerned that he might not have taken the step forward you'd hope for as a 4-year-old.
Crabs and Beer next up. He's one of those horses that I kind of found fun in this race because I think you can make cases for many. I mean, when you go back to the dinner party where he's second in the dinner party in 2024 and he finishes behind Balnikov. It's a pretty good effort. I think you can go through most of his races since then, and a lot of them make sense as to why he's run well or why he hasn't. And I really like horses when you can kind of go race by race. He shows back up after that at Belmont and Aqueduct with a really nice third. Following that, he's going a little too far at Saratoga behind Battle of Normandy and Truly Quality. Both of those horses come out of that race to become graded stakes winners since then. Following that, he's in a race where he just is catching lone speed and he has no pace to run out there at Colonial. So you start going through his form, a good third in a stakes race at Laurel Park right here. That would probably stack up pretty well with that 87 buyer speed figure. Then he's on the synthetic going a little bit longer. Then he clips heels. I know you got to do a little bit of digging, but I think you can make some excuses for him, David. He might be a fair price in here. Where do you think a horse like this stacks up with this group?
Yeah, this is a horse that I did leave out of my top 4 picks, but I have some interest in him if he's going to be a price in this race, as I know you do, Gino, because he has had a few less than ideal trips. And I think I actually did his race back in November at Aqueduct on my old horses to watch, so highlighting horses that had bad trips in New York, because that November 17th race, I mean, he not only clipped heels in the early stages, then he got hung out wide around both turns, just not the kind of trip you want on the turf. He's gotten a couple of preps on the dirt to return to the grass now. I don't love the jockey that's named for this race because it's not a jock that has a whole lot of success just in general, and riding in a turf stakes, that worries me a little bit, but he could be a big price in here.
And we move to Signator. He's another interesting horse, David. I loved him back in 2022. He wins his first couple races. He looks like he might be like a legitimate like 3-year-old type horse to look for the next year after. And then, like a lot of horses, you get some physical issues along the way. But he had a really nice stretch of races at the end of 2023. And then he kind of tailed off when they stepped him up and faced tougher company in 2024. But moving to the grass last time out was kind of a wake up. And I thought he was pretty impressive. It was his first start in 7.5 months. He was last. He was 10 plus lengths out of it. He was kind of looking around for some room and he found some late and he was able to shoot through a tight spot in between horses. I think I've always been kind of a personal fan of this horse. The one thing that he doesn't have, though, is early speed. He lacks that. He's going to be way, way out of it. So that kind of puts him at the mercy of some racing luck in spots. But I think class-wise, this is a pretty good spot for him.
Let's take a look at that replay that you were just describing when he got on turf for the first time at Tampa Bay Downs. And you're right. I mean, he really does have to slice through traffic in this race. You can just kind of barely see his white face between horses at the top of the stretch. And he's going to be obscured, I think, behind runner-up Bapio for much of the stretch drive. But he's just going to poke his nose in front as he comes between horses to take the lead, approaching the wire. So he obviously handled the turf here, Gino. I don't think he really improved that much on his prior dirt form. And I don't know how much he really would have to improve on his dirt form to be competitive with the field like this, because as you said, he was a pretty good dirt horse at the end of 2023. I guess my problem with that last race is he got plenty of pace to close into. It was a very fast pace that kind of came back to him a little bit. So I want to see him produce it again against the tougher field, but he certainly has the back class to be competitive here.
Degree of Risk is in really nice form right now. He was actually grade 1 placed as a 2-year-old. Then he went 15 races without a victory, but he changes barns and he's won 2 of his last 5 now. Coming off a win over at Gulfstream Park last time out. He was 7th. He was in between horses. He did get a pretty nice trip, though, the way it kind of set up. He kind of waited. He angled out. Things opened up nicely for him. The lack of early speed hurts a little bit with him, though, too, David. He's not quite as drop way out of it as a few of the others in here, but he does need a little bit of help up front. This is him kind of shifting out and getting the job done last time.
And it does seem like he's gained a little bit more positional speed since
Agreed.
the purchase and the switch to the Nolan Ramsey barn competing at Gulfstream through this winter. That victory that we just took a look at last time, Gino, I thought that was a weaker field that he's going to be meeting here. So he's got to step up and do it against tougher company. But at least he's gained some consistency for the new barn. So you kind of know what you're going to get from him.
Mischievous Angel is a horse who, like on speed figures, fits really, really well in here. He has not run a race lower than, I think, an 86 Beyer speed figure. He has a ceiling right now that we've seen of about a 94. So on figures, and when you're looking on paper, he fits pretty well with this group. But the bulk of his work, David, has been sprinting. I think visually, when you see him, he looks like a horse who should be fine going a little bit longer. I was kind of disappointed with that last effort, though, in the Belmont Turf Sprint. I just kind of wanted a little bit more from him. The race came up pretty fast, but just didn't really do much. He was a couple lengths off. He stayed inside. He was just flat late. Now, I do want to point out, and you know these kinds of things a little bit better because you watch all of the races there at New York. That particular race, the bulk of the field was way out in the middle of the turf course, and there were a couple horses that kind of ducked down to the inside. He was one of them, and they were kind of spinning their wheels a little bit late. They just didn't seem like they were moving as well. Maybe that wasn't the best part of the course to be in that particular day, but what are some of your thoughts on Mischievous Angel?
Yeah, that was a race on the outer turf course at Aqueduct, and that one can generally play a little bit fairly when the rails aren't all the way down to the inside. So we'll see. I mean, Mischievous Angel, I thought was disappointing in that race, and maybe you're right about it having more of an outside flow and him not being on the best part of the course. I'd have to go back and look at some more races from that day to really make that judgment call. But still, Gino, I'm a little bit bothered by this horse's just lack of form in stakes company. He's looked impressive a couple of times against weaker horses, such as when he broke his maiden on debut or won that race at Kentucky Downs. But when they've stepped him up against some tougher company, he's just lacked that late punch. And now trying a mile, a distance over which he doesn't have much form, I just wonder if he's really going to be up to this task.
We move to Hammer, who stretches out, who's going to try turf again, who will step up. Only one race on the grass, so it's a lot of things kind of against him. He's in nice form, just feels like a speed horse from the outside that they're going to try to get aggressive with maybe and see if they can get a good run for their money.
Yeah, he's definitely a pace player if he starts here, but I found it pretty difficult to make a case for him as a potential win candidate.
Desvio rounds out the field, another without a ton of speed, but he does seem to fit with this group. He does kind of, Desvio and Flaminio kind of look a little bit alike on their form. I think they're horses that might be a little bit better than their speed figures. They haven't always gotten the best of trips. 5 months off to deal with here for Desvio, but David, that's what I thought made this race so challenging. There are probably 4 horses that you won't see in my top 4 selections that I wouldn't have any problem making a case for, or I wouldn't try to talk anybody off. So this is really like a tough pick 4, pick 5 kind of race. Talk to us about Desvio.
Yeah, he's another one of these newly turned 4-year-olds coming back off a layoff, and it did kind of feel like he was just coming into his own when he got on turf in the second half of last season. I thought he ran a really nice third in the Virginia Derby against a good horse and deterministic, and I know he finished off the board in two subsequent starts in New York, the Jockey Club Derby and the Hill Prince, but Gino, I didn't like the trips that he got in either of those races. Made this big early move under the wire the first time in the Jockey Club Derby and faded after that, and then last time in the Hill Prince just got stuck out really wide around both turns. Again, another horse that was just 4 wide around the turns in both bends of that race. So that was just not conducive to him producing his optimum finish in there. Now he's coming back off a layoff. Doesn't have an extensive work tab, but this trader, Madison Myers, does have pretty good numbers in a small sample coming back off the layoff. I will just note, though, you're likely to see a jockey change on this horse. Our former colleague and friend Dan Illman, who now obviously works for the Maryland Jockey Club, did report that Forrest Boyce will be off for mounts this week after a post-parade incident last Sunday.
And as we round out the field and look at selections here, I mean, David put up the 5, 4, 6, 8 as my selections. I could honestly have the 1, 2, 3, and 10 in the mix, who you have 3 of those horses in yours. Like, I don't have a problem with any of them. It was just about kind of stacking them, maybe seeing where we could find value. I had a lot of fun handicapping this race, and I ended up putting Crabs and Beer on top. Talk to us about how you stacked them up.
Yeah, I thought long and hard about Crabs and Beer, so I'm glad that you highlighted that horse. I ended up going with the 2 newly turned 4-year-olds in the first and second positions, the 3 Fulmineo and the 10 Desfio, and I just felt like Desfio was going to be the better price, given out that he's going out for some lower profile connections. But I think this horse ran better than it looks in a couple of races last year and might be stepping into some of his better form now that he turns 4. So 10-3, 1-4 for me.
Whoever you play, however you play them, we wish you the best of luck on Saturday at Laurel.